If you've watched or read my initial review of the LG G5, you'll know all about the issues that I found with HDR10 and Dolby Vision content. If you didn't, then you can read the review at AV Forums, or you can watch the original video review on our YouTube channel or by clicking up here. My written review was published on the 26th of March and the video review went live on the 28th. I fed back my initial findings in some detail to LG, and they've been very proactive in taking the detailed feedback from me and then working on a fix. During in-depth testing of the first review sample, which was on firmware 33.10.19, several issues were identified when viewing streamed and 4K UHD disc content in both HDR10 and Dolby Vision formats. They included raised blacks, where the black levels are displayed brighter than they really should be at the 1 and 3% brightness levels, and that was confirmed by comparison with an LG G4. Additionally, floating blacks were observed in both streamed Dolby Vision and 4K HDR10 disc content, including Kung Fu Panda. As a result of these black level issues, posterization and some severe gradational banding were also noted within HDR content, specifically highlighted with clips from A Quiet Place Day 1 on streaming and on 4K disc. I reported these issues directly to LG during my testing, and I also noticed that sometime after my review was published and the video also went out, there were also other items that were confirmed by other review outlets with slightly different examples of films but very similar issues. One of those much later reviews on the 4th of April highlighted that HDR10 didn't exhibit any of the issues that I'd found, and it was only with Dolby Vision HDR streamed content and not on disc. This was probably due to a later firmware version being available on that review TV that they used, or that they just didn't pick up on those issues. LG has provided me with another review sample of the 65-inch G5 with a beta version of the firmware that I can download and put onto a stick and update it. And they are saying that this update resolves all the issues that I identified to them. When I received this new 65-inch review sample, I checked what firmware it was running, and it was running 33.10.30, so different from my initial test TV. So before breaking out the USB stick and updating this set with the alleged fixed firmware version, I did want to find out what problems persisted with this later firmware on this new sample that I've been sent, just out of curiosity. Would it have the same issues with HDR10 and Dolby Vision that my first review sample running on 30.10.19 had displayed? So I ran through the same clips that had clearly shown the issues on the first review sample, and I was happy to find that on HDR10 versions they were free from many of the issues that I had highlighted, such as the floating blacks, black gradations and posterization. The 1 to 3% brightness checks were still ever so slightly raised, but that was nothing that you would see in normal viewing. This was in a pitch black room, and it certainly wouldn't be seen by the majority of the viewers. So HDR10 looked okay. The only thing was the tunnel sequence in the arrival to Neverland in the film Pan. It was still just a tad too bright. However, with Dolby Vision content on both 4K UHD disc and streaming services, the issues that I'd identified with the review sample in the first occasion, well, they were very much still present. And I was going to say correct, but they were not. It's obviously not correct because those issues were still there. So I uploaded the beta firmware onto this new review TV and then had a look to see if the fixes had been made. And updating the G5 to the latest firmware was pretty easy, and it was now showing 33.10.75. So let's cover off some of the positives first of all. The fade from black start on A Quiet Place Day 1 in Dolby Vision is now handled in a much better manner, and it matches what I can see on the G4 and G5 when we had them side by side for comparison. And the same's true for the scene of the bus following the explosion in the same film. There was no posterization visible now as the light got brighter, and I was also happy to see that Dolby Vision's streamed version of Kung Fu Panda was also now displaying correctly. I tested several Dolby Vision titles that I know very well and can report that the LG G5 is now behaving as I would expect it to. It's not perfect, and there are still instances in very low light scenes where there's a tiny bit of flashing in small areas of the screen. There's also a tricky fade from black in the matrix that's still not quite perfect, but even the LG C5 that I have here as well struggles with that scene. With HDR10 content, there are now no instances of posterization, but when you're watching in absolute pitch black surroundings and in comparison to other sets that I had available here, the G5 is still just a little bit brighter than it needs to be in just above black, and that does impact slightly on the overall contrast. But again, I have to stress that this is in absolute pitch black viewing. It's not noticeable at all when there's even some small ambient light present in the room, such as a laptop off to the corner or whatever. That distracts the eye enough to get rid of that issue. And I doubt that this will affect any viewer's entertainment or enjoyment of the G5, and I'm really only mentioning it here in the hope that LG can also go in and make a slight adjustment to fix the issue. Checking the YCBC-R test and quantization patterns, we could see a vast improvement over the initial review TV as the firmware has managed to fix the issues that I've found. You will see slight diagonal lines moving across the screen if you sit too close in complete blackout conditions due to the dithering algorithm that's being employed on the LG G5, but this again shouldn't be noticeable at normal viewing distances and lighting conditions. After spending some time assessing this firmware update, it fixes the vast majority of the issues that I highlighted in my initial review of the LG G5. And the small issue with it being slightly too bright, just out of black, is something that will affect very few users, and LG should be able to issue a little fix to fix that. It's not very noticeable at all with any amount of ambient light present in a dark room. I will assess a retail set once I can get hold of one from Peter Tyson and when the over-the-air firmware update based on this beta is released, which should be later this month, which is April or early May. At that point, I'll reassess the LG G5 and decide if the scoring needs to be adjusted. And to make sure that you don't miss our TV reviews and the further updates with the LG G5 and of course our comparison testing throughout the year, then make sure that you do like this video and you subscribe to the channel. I'm Phil Hinton, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.